The rain had just stopped when Ayan Malik, 23 years old, stood in the cramped kitchen of Golden Spoon Cafe, staring at the tray in his hands. His shirt was neatly ironed, though the cuffs were frayed. His shoes had lost their shine long ago, yet he polished them every morning with determination. Ayan was a man of quiet dignity, the kind of person who carried himself with respect even when the world seemed intent on tearing that respect away. Tonight, however, he was faced with a moment he could not ignore. The tray he carried was not filled with gourmet dishes or luxury meals, but with something simple: dal, roti, and a small bowl of salad. The customer at table 7 had demanded something extravagant, something he could not afford. And Ayan, forced by circumstance, had no choice but to serve what was within his reach. His hands trembled as he walked toward the table. He knew the man waiting there, the kind of customer who thrived on mocking others, who measured worth by money alone. Ayan's heart raced, 1,000 thoughts colliding in his mind. Should he place the plate with confidence, ignoring the inevitable insults? Should he apologize and humiliate himself further, just to avoid a scene? Or should he, for once, look the man straight in the eyes and hold his ground? The questions clawed at him, louder than the chatter of the cafe, louder than the clinking of cutlery. His decision, he knew, would change the course of this night. Perhaps even his entire life. But what if one small act of defiance brought everything crashing down? What if, in this very moment, someone unexpected walked through the door? The opening scene. The sunlight streamed through the rain-speckled windows of the cafe, casting a golden hue across the tables. The hum of life filled the air, children laughing over plates of fries, couples sharing soft whispers over tea, and workers gulping down quick meals before rushing back to their duties. The cafe was not elegant, but it was warm. The smell of fresh naan and spiced curry wrapped itself around every visitor, promising comfort. And yet, beneath that aroma of home, there was always the bitter taste of class divide. Some customers treated the place like a shelter, others, like a burden. Ayan noticed it all. He had grown sharp-eyed from years of serving people. He could tell a kind soul by the way they held their spoon, and a cruel one by the way they snapped their fingers. Today, his instincts screamed at him as he looked at table 7. Rashid Khan, a man in his late 30s, sat with his gold watch glinting beneath the light. He was not a billionaire, not even close, but he loved to act as if he owned half the city. The way he leaned back in his chair, the way he crossed his legs, the way he scanned the room, all of it oozed arrogance. Rashid thrived on belittling those who served him, and Ayan had been a frequent target of his venom. And tonight, Rashid was in no mood to show mercy. The conflict begins. "Waiter!" Rashid's voice boomed, slicing through the calm of the cafe. Several heads turned. Ayan felt his chest tighten, but he steadied his breath and walked forward, tray in hand. When he placed the humble meal before Rashid, silence followed. The cafe seemed to pause, waiting for the insult that everyone knew was coming. Rashid looked at the food, then at Ayan, then back at the food again. His lips curled into a sneer. "This?" Rashid said, his voice dripping with mockery. "This is what you bring me? Do you think I'm a beggar? Do you think I came here to eat prison food?" A few customers snickered nervously. Others looked away, embarrassed for Ayan. Ayan stood still, his jaw clenched. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but the words caught in his throat. "You think this is a cafe?" Rashid continued loudly, enjoying the attention. "It's a joke. And you," he pointed at Ayan, "you're the biggest joke of all. Serving cheap food like this? Maybe you belong on the street, selling peanuts instead." The laughter from Rashid's table grew louder. Ayan's ears burned, but he held his ground. His silence was not weakness, it was dignity. Still, inside, his heart was breaking. The glimpse of truth. In that moment, Ayan noticed something unusual. Through the cafe's glass door, a black car had pulled up, sleek, spotless, the kind of car only the wealthy could afford. A driver stepped out, quickly opening the back door. The sound of polished shoes touching the wet pavement echoed faintly, even inside. And then, the man himself walked in. The cafe seemed to inhale in unison. Conversations halted. Heads turned. Even Rashid stopped mid-laugh. The newcomer was tall, dressed in a dark tailored suit that spoke of power and elegance. His hair was silver at the temples, his watch subtle yet priceless. There was no need for him to announce who he was, his presence did it for him. Everyone in the cafe whispered his name under their breath. Zamir Qureshi. The billionaire. The man who owned half the businesses in the city. The one no one expected to ever step foot into a humble cafe like Golden Spoon. And yet, here he was. A billionaire's entrance. Ayan's breath caught. He had heard stories about Zamir Qureshi, the way he built an empire from scratch, the way his decisions could lift families out of poverty or crush fortunes overnight. To see him standing just a few feet away was like witnessing a legend step out of a storybook. The billionaire's eyes scanned the cafe. They were sharp, observant, missing nothing. When they landed on Rashid's table, lingering on the cheap meal that had caused such mockery, a flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. And then, his gaze shifted to Ayan. The young waiter felt his stomach twist. Why was Zamir Qureshi looking at him? The spark of change. Before anyone could react, Zamir walked forward. His voice was calm, deep, and commanding. Is this how you treat someone who works with dignity? He asked Rashid, his tone carrying a weight that silenced the room. Mocking a man for the food he serves? Or are you mocking the food itself, the same food that keeps millions alive every single day? The cafe froze. Rashid's face drained of color. For once, the man who always had something to say had no words. Zamir's hand rested lightly on the back of Ayan's chair. A meal, no matter how simple, carries respect. And the person who serves it deserves even more. Ayan's eyes widened. He had never been defended before, not like this, not by someone with power. His chest swelled with emotions he could not name: relief, gratitude, disbelief. But as Zamir settled into a chair, something deeper stirred. He didn't just defend Ayan. He had chosen to sit here, in this cafe. And Ayan knew, this night was only just beginning. The cafe was still, as if the very air had frozen. Forks hovered halfway to mouths, conversations dissolved mid-sentence, and even the children who had been giggling moments ago sat quietly, wide-eyed. Ayan Malik stood motionless, tray trembling faintly in his hands, staring at the man seated before him. Zamir Qureshi, the billionaire, the legend, the untouchable. It was the kind of moment Ayan had only dreamed of, standing in the presence of power, but not as a forgotten shadow. Tonight, for the first time, he had been seen. But why here? Why now? The unlikely meal. Zamir settled into his chair with ease, as though this modest cafe was no different from the marble halls of luxury hotels. His sharp eyes drifted to the tray in Ayan's hands, the simple meal of dal, roti, and salad. Bring me what you served him, Zamir said, nodding toward Rashid Khan, who still sat pale and speechless. The words struck the room like thunder. Gasps escaped from every corner. Customers exchanged looks, their disbelief plain. A billionaire, choosing such food? In a cafe known for being cheap? Rashid's jaw fell open. Sir, with respect, this is not food for someone of your status, he blurted, voice shaking. Zamir's gaze cut to him, cold and unyielding. And what status would that be? His tone was sharp, though calm. Is it not food? Is it not clean? Does it not feed a hungry man? Rashid shrank under the weight of his words, his earlier arrogance dissolving like sugar in hot tea. Ayan's hands trembled as he placed the tray before Zamir. Sir, would you like something else? Something better prepared, he asked softly, unsure if he should risk offering more. Zamir looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. This will do. And with that, the billionaire broke a piece of roti, dipped it into the dal, and ate. The silence was deafening. Every eye in the cafe was on him, waiting, judging. But Zamir ate without hesitation, chewing slowly, savoring the taste. Then, finally, he set the bread down and spoke. It is simple, he said. And it is perfect. The ripple effect. The tension in the cafe cracked like glass. A low murmur spread among the customers: astonishment, admiration, disbelief. Some nodded as if agreeing, others whispered that they had never seen such humility from a man of wealth. But none were more shaken than Rashid. His face burned red, his gold watch suddenly feeling like a cheap ornament, his expensive clothes like rags. For years, he had mocked others to feel tall. But now, with a single act, Zamir had made him look smaller than ever. Unable to bear the stares, Rashid pushed back his chair and stormed out, muttering curses under his breath. No one stopped him. No one cared. Ayan exhaled slowly, almost in disbelief. Rashid was gone. For once, the humiliation had not fallen on him. For once, he had not been the one made to bow his head. But he couldn't let relief overwhelm him, because now, the most powerful man in the room was watching him closely. The first conversation. Zamir wiped his hands with a napkin and looked up at Ayan. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. What is your name? Ayan. Malik, sir, he answered quickly. How long have you worked here, Ayan? Almost 3 years. And do you enjoy it? The question struck deeper than Ayan expected. Did he enjoy it? Did he enjoy working long hours for little pay, facing insults daily, returning home with aching feet and a tired smile for his younger siblings? Enjoyment was not the word. Responsibility was. Survival was. He hesitated, then forced a faint smile. I do what I must, sir. Zamir studied him, eyes narrowing slightly as if measuring the truth behind his words. Good. Honesty is worth more than any currency. The billionaire's test. The cafe owner, Uncle Kareem, waddled nervously from the back. A stout man in his 50s, Kareem had always run his cafe with pride, but tonight he looked more anxious than ever. His hands rubbed against his apron, leaving streaks of flour and oil. Sir, please, if you'd like, we can prepare something special: mutton curry, biryani, anything you prefer. No charge, Kareem said, his voice shaky. But Zamir raised a hand. No. This meal is enough. Then, unexpectedly, he turned to Ayan. Bring me tea. But make it yourself. The room buzzed again. Make it himself? Tea was usually prepared by Kareem or the cooks. Why Ayan? Confused but obedient, Ayan nodded. Yes, sir. He hurried to the kitchen, his mind racing. What was happening? Why would a billionaire care about a waiter's tea? He carefully measured the milk, added the right amount of sugar, let the tea leaves simmer until the aroma filled the air. His mother had always said a person's character could be tasted in the tea they made: patience in the boil, kindness in the sweetness, discipline in the balance. When he returned with the steaming cup, his hand steady now, Zamir took it, sipped once, and set it down. The billionaire smiled faintly. Perfect. You made it with care, not haste. Do you always work this way? Yes, sir, Ayan said quietly. I believe, if I serve someone, it should be with respect. Zamir leaned back, folding his hands. Good. That means you are not serving food. You are serving dignity. The hidden lesson. The cafe erupted in quiet approval: nods, murmurs, even soft claps. The customers, who had earlier pitted Ayan, now looked at him with new eyes. But beneath the admiration, Ayan felt something else, a strange shift in the air, as though this night was not ordinary at all. Why was Zamir here? Why was he testing him, watching him, praising him in front of everyone? Was this chance or design? He remembered the black car, the way it had pulled up with purpose. This was not a man who wandered randomly. Zamir Qureshi moved with intention. Every step, every decision, was calculated. So why here? Why him? The question of fate. After finishing his tea, Zamir stood. His presence filled the room again, commanding silence. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. From it, he slid out a single crisp note, not an extravagant tip, but enough to make Kareem's eyes widen. He placed it on the counter, then turned back to Ayan. You served me well tonight. But more than that, you showed dignity where others showed arrogance. Ayan swallowed hard, unsure what to say. Zamir's eyes lingered on him, sharp yet almost kind. Tell me, Ayan, if you had the chance to step beyond these walls, to prove yourself in a bigger world, would you take it? The cafe went silent again. Every ear strained to hear his answer. Ayan's heart pounded. What did he mean? Was this just a test of words, or was there something real behind it? He felt the weight of the question pressing on his soul. Could he dare to dream beyond these four walls? Beyond the trays, the insults, the endless cycle of survival? His lips parted, but no words came. He looked at the floor, then at Zamir, then at the waiting crowd. And in that moment, before he could speak, Zamir leaned forward and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. Choose carefully. Because your answer may decide everything. The cafe felt like it was holding its breath after Zamir Qureshi's words. Every eye was fixed on Ayan, every ear waiting for his response. But Ayan's tongue felt heavy, his heart beating so loudly it drowned out every other sound. For years, he had lived in the same pattern: wake up, work, bring home a little money, feed his family, sleep, repeat. Dreams were things he had buried long ago, too costly for someone like him. And now, suddenly, a man who could change everything was asking him the one question he had never dared ask himself: if he had the chance, would he take it? His fingers tightened around the tray he still carried, knuckles white. He thought of his mother, her tired hands washing clothes late into the night. He thought of his younger sister Aliyah, just 16, who had stopped asking for new books because she knew he couldn't afford them. He thought of his brother Hamza, 10 years old, who once asked why their father never came home, and Ayan had no answer. He thought of them all, of the nights they went to bed with little food, of the days when hope seemed like a cruel joke. His chest burned with the weight of responsibility. Could he afford to dream when so many depended on him simply to survive? But Zamir's eyes did not let him escape. They seemed to pierce straight through his hesitation, as if testing not just his courage but his soul. The cafe had gone completely silent, and finally Ayan forced himself to answer. His voice was soft at first, but it grew stronger with each word. Yes, sir. If I had the chance, I would take it. I cannot promise I know everything. But I can promise. I will give it everything I have. The words hung in the air like sparks. Zamir's lips curved into the faintest smile. He said nothing at first, only nodded as if he had heard exactly what he wanted. Then, he turned, walking toward the door with his bodyguards silently falling into step behind him. But just before leaving, he looked back once more at Ayan. His words were firm, low, and yet loud enough for all to hear. Good. Then your test begins tonight. The door closed behind him. The cafe erupted with whispers. People rushed to Ayan, some congratulating, some questioning, others warning him not to trust too easily. Uncle Karim grabbed his arm, shaking him slightly. Ayan, do you even understand what just happened? Do you know what kind of man that is? If he means what I think he means, your life will never be the same again. But Ayan barely heard him. His legs felt weak, his mind spinning. Your test begins tonight. What did that mean? What test? What world had he just agreed to step into without knowing? He stumbled back into the kitchen, pressing his palms against the counter, breathing hard. For the first time in years, fear and hope tangled together inside him. He didn't know if he had just saved his life, or signed it away. Later that night, long after the cafe had emptied and the chairs had been stacked, Ayan walked home through the damp streets. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of rain and earth. His small apartment, tucked in a narrow alley, was lit by a dim yellow bulb. Inside, his mother sat mending clothes by hand, her eyes tired but gentle. Aliyah was reading an old, torn book, and Hamza was drawing with broken crayons on scraps of paper. They all looked up when Ayan entered, his shirt still smelling faintly of spices and tea. You're late, his mother said, though her tone was not scolding. Something happened at the cafe, Ayan said slowly, sitting down, his voice unsteady. Aliyah tilted her head. What kind of something? He hesitated. How could he explain? That a billionaire had walked in, defended him, tested him, and then given him a choice that could change everything? If he told them, would they even believe it? Or would he just raise their hopes for nothing? So he smiled faintly and said only, "A customer spoke kindly to me today. He reminded me that hard work means something." But inside, the words "Your test begins tonight" echoed endlessly. He could not shake them, could not rest. Even when he lay on his thin mattress hours later, staring at the cracked ceiling, sleep did not come. He kept wondering, would Zamir Qureshi return? Would someone appear at his door? Or was this all some cruel puzzle meant to haunt him? His answer came sooner than he expected. Just past midnight, there was a knock at the door. Firm. Unmistakable. Ayan sat up instantly, his heart pounding. His mother stirred, asking who it could be so late, but before she could rise, Ayan was already at the door. He opened it slowly. Two men in black suits stood outside, their expressions unreadable. Behind them, the same sleek black car waited, headlights glowing in the darkness of the alley. One of the men spoke, his voice calm but commanding. "Mr. Ayan Malik. Mr. Qureshi requests your presence immediately." Ayan froze, his breath catching. His family stared from behind him, wide-eyed. He turned to look at his mother, whose hand had risen to her mouth in shock. His sister whispered, "Bye, what's happening?" Ayan swallowed hard. He didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing: whatever was about to happen, there was no turning back. And as he stepped into the night, sliding into the back seat of that black car, one thought consumed him. Was this the beginning of his rise, or the start of his downfall? The black car moved silently through the city streets, its tinted windows hiding Ayan from the world he had always known. He sat stiffly in the back seat, his hands gripping his knees, his eyes darting to the suited men on either side of him. Neither spoke, their faces unreadable, their attention fixed on the road ahead. The hum of the engine and the faint glow of passing streetlights were the only reminders that time was still moving. Ayan's heart was pounding so hard he thought the men beside him might hear it. He wanted to ask where they were going, why he had been summoned, what his test truly meant. But his voice wouldn't come. Every time he opened his mouth, fear choked the words back down. The car finally slowed, pulling up to an iron gate taller than any building Ayan had ever entered. Guards with earpieces stood straight, scanning the car before nodding it through. Inside, a driveway stretched endlessly, lined with perfectly trimmed hedges and glowing lamps. At the end stood a mansion, its glass walls shimmering under moonlight, a palace of wealth so distant from Ayan's world it felt like a dream. The car stopped. One of the men gestured for him to step out. Ayan's legs shook as he obeyed, his worn shoes sinking into the soft gravel of the driveway. He had never seen such beauty, such luxury, such power gathered in one place. The door to the mansion opened, and there he was. Zamir Qureshi, standing tall, his presence as commanding as it had been in the cafe, but sharper now, like a sword drawn from its sheath. His eyes locked on Ayan's, and in that gaze was both welcome and challenge. "Come," Zamir said simply. Inside, the mansion was silent except for the echo of their footsteps against polished marble. Chandeliers glittered overhead, priceless art lined the walls, but Ayan barely saw them. His mind was spinning, his chest tight. Why him? Why had this man, who could command anyone, chosen a poor cafe waiter for anything at all? They entered a study, dark wood, leather chairs, shelves heavy with books. Zamir gestured for Ayan to sit. Then, without preamble, he spoke. "I saw something in you tonight," he said. "When you stood silent under insult, you did not break. When you served, you did not rush. When asked, you answered with honesty. These are qualities most men lose when wealth blinds them." Ayan lowered his eyes, unsure how to respond. His hands clenched together, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, I am just a waiter. I don't understand what you want from me." Zamir leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "What I want is to know if you are willing to step into a world where honesty and dignity are rare. A world where men are bought and sold, where loyalty is tested every day, where one wrong step can destroy you. If you are willing, then I will open a door for you. If not, then you may leave now and return to your cafe." No shame in that. Ayan's breath caught. He thought of his family, of his siblings sleeping in their tiny home, of his mother's tired eyes. He thought of Rashid Khan mocking him, of all the people who had looked down on him his whole life. And he thought of this moment, this impossible chance that might never come again. His voice shook, but his words were steady. I will not run from the test. I will take the chance. Zamir's eyes softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. Good. Then your first task begins now. He pressed a button on his desk. The door opened, and another man entered, carrying a sealed envelope. He placed it before Ayan. Inside is an address, Zamir said. Tomorrow morning, you will go there. You will meet someone who will test you further. You will not know who they are. You will not know why. But your behavior will decide everything. Ayan stared at the envelope, his pulse racing. And if I fail? Zamir leaned back, his expression unreadable. Then you go back to your life as it was. Nothing more, nothing less. Ayan nodded slowly, his fingers trembling as he picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than paper should. He didn't know why, but he sensed his entire future rested inside it. Zamir stood, walking to the window. Go home now. Rest. Tomorrow will not be easy. And remember, you are not being judged by what you know, but by who you are. The men escorted Ayan back to the waiting car. As it carried him away from the mansion, he clutched the envelope tightly against his chest. His mind swirled with fear, doubt, and a spark of something he hadn't felt in years, hope. When he finally returned home, his family was asleep. He sat in the dark, staring at the envelope, too afraid to open it yet. His heart whispered questions he could not silence. What awaited him at that address? What kind of test could a billionaire possibly have for someone like him? And why did it feel like his life would never be the same after tomorrow? As dawn approached, the envelope still lay unopened in his hands. The first light of dawn slipped through the cracked window of Ayan's small room. He hadn't slept. The envelope still sat in his hands, its edges worn from being turned over again and again throughout the night. Every time he thought of opening it, fear stopped him. What if the address inside led to something dangerous? What if he wasn't ready? Yet, what if he ignored it and lost the only chance he would ever have? He thought of his mother's tired face as she stitched late into the night, of Aliya's longing for books she couldn't afford, of Hamza's innocent questions about a father who never came home. He thought of the laughter of men like Rashid Khan, who believed people like him were meant to stay small forever. His jaw tightened. No, he could not back down now. With a deep breath, he tore the envelope open. Inside was a single slip of paper with an address scrawled neatly across it. No instructions, no names, just a destination. He memorized it, folded the paper, and slipped it into his pocket. By mid-morning, he was on the move. The city was alive with its usual chaos: rickshaws honking, vendors shouting, schoolchildren hurrying down crowded streets. Ayan walked quickly, clutching his bag strap with one hand, the address burning in his mind. When he reached the location, he stopped in shock. It wasn't an office, or a hotel, or anything that looked important. It was a rundown building, its paint peeling, its walls cracked. A narrow staircase led upward into darkness. For a moment, he wondered if he'd been tricked. But no, Zamir Qureshi did nothing without reason. Taking a steadying breath, Ayan climbed the stairs. At the top was a small room with a single chair. A man sat there, his face half hidden in shadow. He wasn't dressed in a suit like Zamir's guards, his clothes were plain, his demeanor quiet but commanding. When he finally looked up, his eyes were sharp and assessing, like a teacher measuring a student before the exam began. "You are Ayan Malik?" the man asked. "Yes," Ayan said cautiously. The man nodded slowly. "Sit." Ayan obeyed, his pulse quickening. The man studied him in silence for a long moment before speaking again. "You came because Zamir Qureshi told you to come. That shows loyalty. But loyalty is worthless if it bends too easily. Today, we will see what kind of man you are." He leaned back, folding his arms. Outside this building, down the street, there is a boy selling newspapers. He is poor, hungry, and desperate. He doesn't know why, but today you will decide what happens to him. You can either ignore him, or you can help him in some way. No one will tell you how. But understand this, whatever you choose, it will reveal who you truly are. Ayan blinked in surprise. That's it? Just a boy selling newspapers? The man's gaze hardened. Don't take it lightly. Zamir Qureshi does not waste his time on meaningless games. Every action has weight. With that, he waved his hand toward the door. Go. You have 1 hour. Ayan left the room, his mind spinning. He walked down the street, searching until he saw him, a thin boy no older than 12, standing barefoot by the curb, shouting headlines in a cracked voice. His clothes were torn, his hair messy, his eyes far too old for his age. Something inside Ayan tightened. He saw Hamza in that boy. He saw himself. He walked closer. How much are your papers? He asked. 20 rupees each, the boy said quickly, his voice timid. Ayan nodded, pulling out a few notes. He bought the entire stack, handing the boy money that was more than he could afford. The boy's eyes widened in shock. Sir, all of them? Yes, Ayan said softly. All of them. And keep the change. The boy stammered his thanks, tears filling his eyes. He clutched the money tightly, his shoulders shaking as he whispered a prayer under his breath. As Ayan walked back toward the building, a strange calm settled over him. He didn't know if he had passed any test. He only knew that he had done what felt right. When he returned to the room, the man was waiting. Did you help him? Yes. Why? Ayan hesitated. Because I know what it's like to be hungry. And because if I want my life to change, I cannot walk past others who suffer the way I have. For the first time, the man's expression softened. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with interest. Then perhaps Zamir was right about you. He slid another envelope across the table. This is your next step. Do not fail it. Each test will grow harder, and each will show whether you are worthy of the path you've been chosen for. Ayan stared at the envelope, his hands trembling as he reached for it. He knew now that this was not some random chance, it was a journey, one that would either raise him higher than he had ever dreamed, or destroy him completely. The envelope felt heavier than it should as Ayan turned it over in his hands. The man across the table said nothing more, his sharp eyes fixed on him, waiting. Ayan swallowed hard, slid his finger under the seal, and tore it open. Inside was another slip of paper, this time with not just an address, but a line of instructions written in bold strokes. Go to this address before evening. Someone will ask you for help. Do not refuse, no matter the risk. Ayan's pulse quickened. No details. No clue what kind of help. Only a command. The man's voice cut through his thoughts. You think it will be simple? No. Today you will be tested not only in heart but in courage. Remember, hesitation can cost everything. Ayan rose, bowing his head slightly, and left. Outside, the sun had risen high, the streets buzzing with noise, vendors calling out their wares, rickshaws honking, the smell of fried snacks floating in the air. But for Ayan, everything felt distant. His mind was fixed only on the address. It led him to a narrow alley on the edge of the city, far from the bustle of markets and cafes. The buildings here were old and broken, paint peeling, walls cracked. Children played barefoot in the dirt, their laughter carrying through the dusty air. Ayan walked cautiously, the paper clutched in his pocket, until he found the door marked with the number from the note. He hesitated, then knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a young woman, no older than 25. Her clothes were simple, her face pale with worry. She looked at Ayan with desperate eyes, as though she had been waiting. You're the one they sent? She asked quickly. Ayan blinked. I don't know. But I was told someone here needed help. She grabbed his arm and pulled him inside before he could say more. The small room smelled of medicine and damp walls. In the corner, an older man lay on a thin mattress, coughing violently. His chest heaved with every breath, and his face was drenched in sweat. "My father," the young woman whispered. "He's been sick for weeks. The doctors say he needs medicine we can't afford. They told me someone would come. Please, help us." Ayan froze. He had barely enough money to keep his own family afloat. How could he afford to help strangers? Yet the note had been clear: do not refuse, no matter the risk. His mind raced. He thought of his mother's tired hands, of Hamza's drawings on scraps of paper, of Aliya's longing for books. Every rupee he spent here would take away from them. But he also thought of the boy with the newspapers, the way his eyes had shone when hope returned. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the little money he had saved. It wasn't enough for the full treatment, but it was enough to buy medicine for now. He placed it into the young woman's hands. "It's all I have. Use it for your father. I'll find a way to manage at home." Her eyes filled with tears. She clutched his hands tightly, whispering blessings over and over. "May God repay you, may your kindness never be forgotten." Ayan tried to smile, though his chest felt heavy. He left the house, his pockets empty, his mind filled with doubt. Had he done enough? Was this what Zamir's test meant? Or had he just crippled his family for nothing? As he walked back toward the main road, a black car appeared, stopping silently beside him. The same man from before stepped out, the one who had given him the first 2 tests. His gaze swept over Ayan, unreadable. "You gave them everything," the man said flatly. "Even when you had nothing." Ayan lowered his head. "They needed it more than me." The man studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. Then you are ready for the real test. Until now, you've only proven you can give. But the world Zamir lives in is not built on kindness alone. Tomorrow, you will be asked to choose not between right and wrong, but between 2 wrongs. That is where most men break." Ayan's stomach tightened. 2 wrongs? What could that mean? The man handed him another sealed envelope, darker than the last. "Keep this safe. Do not open it until dawn. And remember, Zamir is watching everything." The car pulled away, leaving Ayan standing alone in the dusty street, the envelope burning like fire in his hands. He didn't know what awaited him in the morning. He only knew that each step was pulling him further from the life he had known, deeper into a test that could either lift him into a new world, or destroy him completely. That night, as he sat in the dim light of his small home, his family noticed his silence. His mother asked what troubled him, but he only shook his head. Aliya pressed him for answers, but he gave none. And when Hamza tugged at his sleeve, asking softly, "Are you okay?" Ayan forced a smile and nodded, even as fear gnawed at him from within. When he finally lay down, sleep did not come. The envelope remained under his pillow, heavy with secrets, whispering promises of a test that could shatter everything. The call of the morning azan echoed softly through the streets as dawn broke, but Ayan's eyes were already open. He hadn't slept a single minute. His hand rested under the pillow, clutching the envelope that felt like a stone pressing against his chest. The words of the man rang in his ears again and again: "Tomorrow you will be asked to choose not between right and wrong, but between 2 wrongs." His fingers trembled as he tore the seal. Inside was not just an address this time, but 2 names. Written clearly in bold ink. Rashid Khan. Ibrahim Ansari. And beneath them, a single line: "One must fall. You will decide who." Ayan's breath caught in his throat. Rashid Khan, the man who had humiliated him in front of an entire restaurant, the man who laughed at his poverty, the man who believed Ayan was beneath him. And Ibrahim Ansari, he knew that name too. A small-time shopkeeper in the neighborhood, known for selling goods on credit to poor families. A man who, despite his own struggles, helped others survive. His head spun. What kind of choice was this? The rest of the instructions were chillingly simple: by sunset, one of these men must be ruined. Ayan didn't know how, but he was to carry out the order. He sat motionless for a long time, his thoughts torn apart.
Destroy Rashid Khan, the cruel man who had mocked him? Or Ibrahim Ansari, the kind soul who had helped many like him?
His heart screamed the answer was obvious. But a darker voice whispered, maybe this is the trap.
Maybe they want to see if you will let emotions guide you instead of reason.
By midday, Ayan forced himself onto the streets, searching for answers. He found Rashid Khan first, standing outside his restaurant, barking orders at workers. His voice was loud, arrogant, full of contempt for everyone.
Ayan's fists clenched just hearing him.
Then he remembered the laughter that night, the shame that had burned in his chest. How easy it would be to take him down. But then he walked further into the bazaar, where Ibrahim Ansari's small shop stood. The shelves were nearly bare, the paint on the walls peeling. Yet inside, Ibrahim greeted every customer with warmth. He handed bread to a woman who could not pay, waved away her apologies, and told her to settle the bill later. His kindness felt like sunlight in the darkness of the market.
Ayan's throat tightened. How could he harm a man like this?
As he stood there, torn, a voice startled him. You look troubled, Beta, Ibrahim said gently, stepping out of his shop.
Come inside, have some tea. You look like you've been carrying the whole world on your shoulders. Ayan followed him in, sitting on a rickety stool.
Ibrahim poured tea into 2 chipped cups and handed one to him. Life tests us in strange ways, doesn't it? He said with a knowing smile. But never forget, sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that show us who we truly are.
Ayan nearly dropped his cup. Did Ibrahim know? No, it couldn't be.
But the weight of those words struck him like lightning. Hours passed, the sun lowering toward the horizon.
Ayan's chest felt crushed.
His choice had to be made. At last, he scribbled a single name onto a slip of paper just as the instructions had demanded and delivered it to the drop-off point written in the envelope. As he slipped the paper into the small locked box, his heart thundered. He whispered a prayer that he had chosen wisely, though a storm of doubt tore through him. That night, as he returned home, a car stopped suddenly in front of him. The same man stepped out, his face harder than ever.
He held a small envelope in his hand and extended it toward Ayan.
You've chosen, he said coldly. Now you must live with the consequences.
Tomorrow, you will see the result of your decision and there will be no turning back. Ayan took the envelope with shaking hands.
He could barely breathe. What had he done? What price would be paid? And more terrifying than anything, had he just condemned an innocent man, or spared a guilty one? The night closed around him, heavy and suffocating. His family slept peacefully, unaware that their son, their brother, had just unleashed a storm that could destroy lives.
Ayan lay awake, his mind tormented by a single question. When the sun rises, whose life will be shattered because of me?
The morning light spilled across the city, bright and ordinary, but for Ayan, it carried the weight of judgment. Every sound outside, the vendors shouting, the clatter of carts, the barking of dogs, felt louder, sharper, as if the world itself was waiting to see what he had done. He rose slowly, his stomach tied in knots, and opened the small envelope the man had given him the night before.
Inside was only one word. Done.
His breath caught. That was it. No name, no explanation, just a single word that confirmed someone's life had just been broken because of him. But who? His steps carried him through the streets as if in a dream. He moved past familiar alleys, past neighbors who greeted him, past children playing, but his mind screamed with dread.
He needed to know.
And then, as he neared the market, he saw it. A crowd had gathered. People whispered, some gasped, others shook their heads in pity.
Ayan pushed his way forward, his heart pounding.
There, at the center of the crowd, stood Rashid Khan.
But he wasn't laughing. He wasn't mocking anyone.
His face was pale with rage, sweat dripping from his brow.
Around him, men shouted accusations, fraud, unpaid debts, illegal dealings.
2 uniformed officers stood at his side, their grip firm on his arms. Rashid Khan had fallen.
Ayan's legs nearly gave out.
Relief and fear collided inside him.
He hadn't condemned Ibrahim Ansari.
The kind shopkeeper was safe. But still,
The realization burned in his chest: he had chosen a man's ruin.
He had signed the end of someone's livelihood.
Was it justice? Or vengeance disguised as fate? As Rashid was dragged through the crowd, his furious eyes locked onto Ayan. The look was sharp, searing, as if he knew.
As if he had already marked Ayan as the reason for his downfall.
That night, the black car appeared again. Ayan had expected it. He climbed inside without hesitation.
The man sat across from him, silent for a while, studying him with those piercing eyes.
"You chose Rashid Khan," the man said at last. Ayan's mouth went dry. "Yes." "Why?" Ayan swallowed hard. "Because he is cruel.
He shames the poor, tramples the weak. If someone had to fall, it should be him, not a man who helps others survive." The man leaned back, considering.
"So you chose based on your heart, not strategy." Ayan flinched. "Was I wrong?" The man's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Not wrong.
But remember this: mercy and justice are not the same as power. Rashid Khan may be gone from his pedestal, but men like him do not disappear quietly."
"He will remember your face." Ayan's chest tightened. He could still feel the fury in Rashid's glare.
The man leaned forward now, his voice sharper.
"And this is only the beginning. Do you understand? You have stepped onto a road that cannot be left halfway.
Zamir does not choose men for their kindness alone.
He chooses them for their will.
You have shown both. But now, you must prove you can stand when the storm comes." He slid another envelope across the seat.
This one was thicker than the rest. "Your next step will not test your charity or your sense of justice. It will test your loyalty. And loyalty often means betrayal of something else." The words cut like a blade. Ayan clutched the envelope, his palms damp with sweat. His loyalty to Zamir? To his family? To his own conscience? Which one would he be asked to betray?
The car stopped suddenly, dropping him near his street.
The man gave him one final glance. "Open it tomorrow.
And remember, every choice you make ties you tighter to Zamir's world.
One day, you will look back and see that you cannot return to the life you once had." Ayan stood frozen in the dim light of the street as the car drove away, its taillights vanishing into the night.
He clutched the envelope against his chest, his mind a storm of questions. When he entered his home, his mother was mending clothes by the lamp, her tired eyes lifting to him with a smile.
Aliyah was curled up with Hamza, reading aloud from one of her borrowed books.
For a fleeting moment, the warmth of his small home wrapped around him. But then his gaze fell to the envelope in his hand, heavy with secrets, and his heart sank. He knew that by tomorrow, the fragile piece of this home might shatter forever.
And as he lay awake once again, staring at the ceiling, one question consumed him. What loyalty would he be forced to betray next?
The night stretched long, but morning finally came.
Ayan sat at the edge of his bed, the envelope clutched in his trembling hands.
Unlike the others, this one felt heavier, as though it carried more than just paper. It carried chains that would bind him tighter to Zamir's world. His mother stirred in the next room, coughing softly.
Aliyah hummed a tune while folding laundry, and Hamza's laughter echoed as he played with paper airplanes. That simple, ordinary sound cut Ayan like a knife. Could he protect this little world while stepping deeper into the shadows of another? Or would he lose it all? He tore open the envelope. Inside were photographs.
His heart nearly stopped when he saw the first one. It was of Abraham Ansari, the kind shopkeeper he had spared. The second photo was of his own mother, walking back from the market, groceries balanced in her tired hands.
And beneath them, a single line written in sharp ink. "Choose who will lose your loyalty." Ayan's breath came shallow. His hands shook violently as he read it again. The meaning was clear.
He could either betray Ibrahim Ansari, the man who had once offered him tea, who helped the poor without hesitation, or betray his own family by drawing Zamir's world closer to them, making them vulnerable to its claws.
His mind spun. This isn't a test of giving or justice. This is a test of loyalty.
By noon, he found himself standing in the same cafe where everything had begun. The world around him buzzed with clinking cups and chatter, but inside Ayan's chest there was only silence, heavy and suffocating. The man appeared again, sliding into the seat across from him. He placed his elbows on the table, his piercing gaze locking onto Ayan. "You opened it," the man said calmly. "Yes," Ayan whispered, his voice hoarse. "Then you know the choice." Ayan clenched his fists under the table. "You're asking me to betray one of them." The man's lips curved faintly. "Not asking. Demanding." "Zamir Qureshi needs to know if you understand what loyalty means. Loyalty is not proven by words. It is proven when you sacrifice something precious." Ayan's chest ached. "And if I refuse?" The man leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "Then the choice will be made for you. And you will not like the outcome." Silence stretched between them. The cafe's noise faded into nothing. Ayan's heartbeat pounded like a drum. He saw Ibrahim's gentle smile in his mind. He saw his mother's weary face, Aliya's quiet hope, Hamza's innocent laughter. Finally, the man slid a pen and a blank slip of paper toward him. "Write down the name of the one you will betray. You have until sunset." The weight of that paper felt unbearable. He pocketed it, his mind screaming as he left the cafe. Hours passed in torment. He walked the crowded bazaar, watching Ibrahim hand food to children with no money. He returned home, where Hamza proudly showed him his newest drawing of a rocket ship. His mother asked softly if he'd eaten. Aliya pressed him to share what troubled him. Every face was a plea. Every heartbeat was a countdown. When the sun dipped low, Ayan stood alone on a rooftop, the city spread before him in golden shadow. He held the slip of paper in his hand, the pen poised. His soul felt ripped in two. If he betrayed Ibrahim, he would be destroying a man who represented everything good and kind in this cruel world. But if he betrayed his family, he would be letting Zamir's shadow fall directly upon them. The pen shook in his grip. He closed his eyes, whispered a prayer, and finally wrote down one name. He folded the slip, sealed it, and dropped it into the appointed box as the last light of the day bled from the sky. And as he walked home, his steps heavy, he whispered to himself, "Please forgive me. Please survive this." He didn't know which prayer was meant for Ibrahim, and which for his family. The next morning, the city felt different. The air was heavier, the streets quieter, as if the world itself held its breath. Ayan walked through the bazaar, every step dragging with dread. He knew today he would discover the price of his choice. Crowds murmured near Ibrahim Ansari's small shop. Ayan's chest tightened. He forced his way through, his heart pounding, afraid of what he would see. The shutters of the shop were closed. Ibrahim stood outside, his head bent, his shoulders slumped. A police officer nailed a notice onto the wall, "Property seized." The whispers of neighbors filled the air, unpaid debts, fraudulent papers, no one expected this. Ayan's throat went dry. His stomach turned. His hand curled into a fist at his side. It was Ibrahim. He was the one who fell. The kind man who gave food to the hungry, who offered tea to a stranger, who smiled even through hardship, now stood broken, his shop gone, his name dragged through dirt. Ibrahim lifted his eyes briefly, meeting Ayan's. They were not filled with anger. No, what Ayan saw in those eyes was worse, a quiet sadness, a deep wound of betrayal, as if Ibrahim somehow knew Ayan had been part of this. The weight of that gaze crushed him. He couldn't breathe. He turned and fled, his steps pounding the dusty street until he was far from the crowd. That evening, the black car appeared again. The man waited inside, calm as ever, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "You chose your family," he said simply. "And so Ibrahim Ansari pays the price." Ayan's voice cracked. "You ruined him. He did nothing wrong, he didn't deserve this." The man leaned closer, his tone icy. "Deserve? You think the world Zamir Qureshi rules is about what people deserve? No. It is about who survives, and who falls. And today, you survived." Ayan's chest burned.
At what cost? The man's eyes narrowed. At the cost of loyalty. You proved that when forced to choose, you will protect your own blood. That is what Zamir wanted to know. And now, you are bound to him. Whether you like it or not.
He slid another envelope across the seat, heavier than the ones before.
This is your next step.
You have shown kindness, justice, and loyalty.
Now, you must show strength.
The kind of strength that makes men fear your name.
Ayan didn't take the envelope right away. His hands shook.
His mind swirled with Ibrahim's broken figure, with the way his eyes had searched his soul. Finally, he snatched the envelope, his jaw clenched. When the car drove off and Ayan stood alone under the streetlight, he stared at the packet in his hand. He felt sick, trapped, furious at himself. Yet beneath all that, a new fire began to burn.
If this was the world Zamir wanted to drag him into, then Ayan would not enter as a slave.
He would rise, but on his own terms. Still, when he returned home, he couldn't meet his mother's eyes.
Aliyah asked him gently why he looked so pale, but he only muttered that he was tired.
Hamza tugged his sleeve, begging him to join in a game, but Ayan forced a smile and excused himself.
Later that night, alone in his room, he opened the envelope. Inside was a single line, written in the same sharp ink.
Tomorrow, you will confront a man who fears nothing. Break him or be broken yourself. Ayan closed his eyes, gripping the paper until it tore in his hands. His heart hammered in his chest. Tomorrow would not test his kindness, or his family, or his conscience. Tomorrow would test his very soul.
The night passed in restless silence, each tick of the clock drilling into Ayan's chest like a hammer. The words in the envelope would not leave his mind: break him or be broken yourself.
He didn't know who this man was, what power he held, or why Zamir wanted him crushed. But one thing was clear: this wasn't about charity, or loyalty, or even choice anymore. This was about strength. About showing he could stand face to face with a man who bowed to no one.
At dawn, Ayan left his house quietly, slipping past his mother's watchful eyes, past Aliyah's sleepy face, past Hamza's peaceful dreams. He carried only the address written on a small slip of paper.
His hands trembled as he walked, but his jaw was set. The address led him deep into the heart of the city, to a large warehouse by the docks. The air smelled of salt and oil, gulls shrieked overhead, and men shouted as crates were hauled onto ships. The warehouse itself loomed like a beast of steel and shadow. Inside, the air was thick with dust and tension. At the far end, sitting on a wooden chair like a king on his throne, was a broad-shouldered man with scars across his face. His eyes burned with a wild, dangerous light. Finally, the man growled when he saw Ayan. "So you're the boy Zamir has sent."
Ayan's voice caught. "And you are?"
The man leaned forward, his grin sharp and cruel.
"Khalid Dar. And in this city, no one tells me what to do. Not even Zamir." The name struck Ayan like thunder.
He had heard whispers of Khalid Dar, a smuggler, a fighter, a man feared in the underworld for his brutality. People said he had broken bones with his bare hands, ruined families who crossed him, and stared death in the eye without blinking. And now, Ayan was supposed to break him. Khalid rose from his chair, towering over him.
"So tell me, boy, what are you here to do? Beg me to kneel? Or try to make me?" Ayan's pulse raced.
His legs trembled, but he forced himself to stand tall. "I'm here to finish what I was told to do." Khalid laughed, a deep, mocking sound that echoed in the warehouse.
"Zamir is testing you. I can smell it.
You're nothing but a child playing in a world of wolves." He stepped closer, his breath hot with menace.
"If you think you can break me, you'd better be ready to bleed." The room fell into silence. Ayan felt trapped between fear and resolve.
His hands shook, but inside his chest something shifted, a flame that had been growing ever since the day Rashid Khan humiliated him, ever since the night Ibrahim's eyes had pierced him with quiet pain. He straightened, his voice steady.
"I don't need to break you with fists. I will break you with truth."
Khalid's grin faded into a scowl.
"Truth?" Ayan took a step forward, his fear dissolving into boldness. You pretend to fear nothing. But men who fear nothing don't need to roar. They don't need to prove themselves. You've built your life on making others afraid, but inside, you're terrified of being forgotten. That's why you scream, that's why you hurt, that's why you fight. Because without fear, you are nothing. Khalid's jaw tightened. The laughter died in his throat. For the first time, his eyes wavered. Ayan pressed on, his voice growing stronger. You don't control this city. You hide in its shadows, clinging to power because you know one day, someone braver, someone stronger, will stand up to you. And that day is today. The warehouse was silent but for the sound of waves outside. Khalid's fists clenched, his breath heavy. For a moment, it seemed he might strike Ayan down. But then, he stopped. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw ground tight, and he turned away. You've got fire, boy, Khalid muttered through gritted teeth. Zamir was right about you. He didn't kneel, but he didn't strike either. In that silence, Ayan realized he had done something more powerful. He had forced Khalid to turn his back. From the shadows of the warehouse, slow clapping echoed. The man from the black car stepped into the light, his sharp eyes glittering with satisfaction. Well done, Ayan Malik, he said. You didn't just face Khalid Dar, you bent him without touching him. That takes more strength than fists ever could. Ayan's knees threatened to give out, but he stood tall, his chest heaving. He had survived. He had broken a man who claimed to fear nothing. But as Khalid stormed out of the warehouse, his glare sharp as a blade, Ayan knew this wasn't over. He had won today, but he had made an enemy who would not forget. The man approached, slipping another envelope into Ayan's hand. You've passed the test of strength. But remember this: every time you rise, another enemy marks your name. The higher you climb, the sharper the knives waiting for your back. Ayan's fingers closed around the envelope, his heart pounding. He didn't know how many more tests awaited him. He only knew the path back was gone. The only way left was forward. The walk back from the warehouse felt heavier than the battle itself. Ayan's shoes scraped against the cracked pavement, the salty wind of the docks still clinging to his clothes. His chest burned with a strange mixture of victory and dread. He had stood before Khalid Dar and walked away alive, but not untouched. Somewhere deep in his gut, he knew Khalid's silence was not surrender. It was a promise. A promise that one day, that scarred face would return, and it wouldn't be to talk. When Ayan finally pushed open the creaky door of his small home, the warm smell of chai greeted him. His mother sat in the kitchen, her frail hands wrapped around a steaming cup. She looked up, her tired eyes softening. Ayan, where were you so early? He froze, the new envelope still burning in his pocket. Just work, Ami. Extra shift. Her lips pressed together, suspicious, but she didn't pry. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. Don't tire yourself too much, Beta. You are young, but even strong bones can break when burden is too heavy. Her words struck like an arrow. If only she knew the storm circling around him. If only she knew that he wasn't just carrying their poverty anymore, he was carrying enemies too. Later that evening, he finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet, neat letters inked in bold strokes. Trust will be your next trial. Betray him or be betrayed. Beneath the words was another name, Rashid Khan. Ayan's breath caught. Rashid, the man who had humiliated him in the cafe, the man who had sneered at his cheap service, the man whose cruelty had first pushed him into this twisted game. Now he was being told to betray him, or be betrayed. But how? And why Rashid? The following days were restless. Ayan worked at the cafe with a storm raging inside him. Rashid came often, still arrogant, still cruel, throwing money as if it were dirt. But now, Ayan noticed things he hadn't before: the way Rashid always looked over his shoulder, the hurried phone calls in hushed tones, the quick meetings with strange men who left as quickly as they came. Something was wrong. Rashid wasn't just a spoiled bully, he was hiding something. One evening, as Ayan cleaned a table, he overheard Rashid on the phone in the corner. His voice was sharp, angry. I told you, the shipment has to go tonight.
If they trace it back to me, everything is ruined. No, I don't care what happens, get rid of anyone who talks.
Ayan froze. Shipment. Trace. Get rid of anyone.
The words rolled through his mind like thunder. Rashid wasn't just a customer, he was involved in something dangerous.
That night, Ayan sat with Aliyah on the rooftop under the dim stars.
She leaned against him, her eyes searching his face.
You've been so distant, bye. What's troubling you? He wanted to tell her everything. About Zamir. About Khalid Dar.
About the trial of trust.
But if he dragged her into his shadow, would she ever forgive him? He forced a smile. Just work, Aliyah. That's all.
But she wasn't convinced. Her fingers tightened around his.
Promise me one thing. No matter what happens, don't let yourself become someone you're not. I don't care how poor we are, I just want my brother to stay my brother.
Her words cut deeper than Rashid's insults ever had.
Was he already becoming someone else? The next morning, another message slipped under the cafe's back door.
It was from the same sharp-eyed man who had been watching him.
Rashid Khan must be exposed.
His mask is his shield.
Tear it away, or you will be the one torn apart. Ayan read it twice, his hands trembling. Trust. Betrayal. Exposure.
It all circled back to one thing: Rashid was living a lie, and it was Ayan's task to destroy it.
But if he failed, if he hesitated, would Rashid strike first? That night, as Rashid swaggered into the cafe once again, Ayan watched him with narrowed eyes. The mask of arrogance seemed thinner now, fragile.
And in that fragility lay Ayan's path.
He just had to decide, would he betray Rashid before Rashid betrayed him?
The cafe buzzed with its usual evening noise, clattering cups, chatter of tired workers, the hiss of boiling kettles.
But for Ayan, every sound blurred into background static.
His eyes were fixed on Rashid Khan, lounging in the corner like a king, phone in hand, smirk plastered across his face. Every gesture, every word, every careless laugh, it all felt like a mask hiding something rotten underneath. The words from the letter echoed inside Ayan's mind: tear away his mask or be the one torn apart.
That night, when Rashid finally stormed out after throwing a fit about his tea being too cold, Ayan slipped into the back alley and followed.
His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, each step weighted with both fear and fire. Rashid's car was parked nearby, a sleek black SUV that didn't fit the dusty street it stood on.
Ayan crouched in the shadows, watching as Rashid climbed inside and pulled out his phone again.
Yes, it's all ready, Rashid hissed into the receiver.
The shipment will move through the docks by midnight. Don't worry, my name won't appear anywhere. If anyone talks, you know what to do. The line of coldness in his tone made Ayan's stomach churn. This wasn't just arrogance, this was cruelty. This was crime.
When Rashid drove off, Ayan followed at a distance, weaving through narrow streets, his breath fogging in the cool night air. The SUV finally stopped near the same warehouse where Ayan had faced Khalid Dar. This time, though, there were no roaring threats, no mocking laughter, just shadows, hushed whispers, and the shifting of crates into the dark. Ayan crept closer, crouching behind a stack of rusted barrels. He saw Rashid pacing, pointing, shouting orders at rough-looking men. Wooden crates were being loaded into a truck. One lid slipped, and Ayan's eyes widened. Inside, wrapped in cloth and hidden beneath decoy goods, were guns.
Weapons meant for smuggling.
The truth hit him like a strike of lightning. Rashid wasn't just a spoiled customer. He was a criminal, a trafficker feeding poison into the city's veins.
But how could Ayan expose him?
He was just one boy against Rashid's wealth, his men, his connections.
If he went to the police, would they even believe him, or would Rashid's money bury the truth?
Suddenly, footsteps crunched nearby.
Ayan ducked, heart hammering.
A man passed, muttering into his radio.
The air grew tight. One wrong move, and he would be caught.
He waited until the truck rumbled away, Rashid following in his SUV. Then he sprinted home, every muscle trembling. In his room, under the dim bulb, he spread out a notebook and began scribbling.
Names. Times. Places.
every detail he had seen. If he couldn't fight Rashid with fists, he would fight him with evidence. But even as he wrote, a dark thought gnawed at him. The trial was about trust. Who could he trust with this information? His family was innocent, Aliyah too fragile to know. The police could be bought. Zamir's people were shadows. What if they only wanted Rashid destroyed for their own gain? He needed someone he could risk believing in. That night, as the city slept, Ayan found himself standing at Ibrahim's small bookshop. The old man was locking up, his cane tapping against the stone. His wise eyes widened at the sight of Ayan's pale face. "Beta, what trouble drags you at this hour?" Ibrahim asked softly. Ayan's throat tightened. He wanted to trust him, to hand over the notebook, to let someone wiser carry the weight. But Zamir's warning echoed, betray him, or be betrayed. Could he risk trusting even Ibrahim? Or would this test force him to face betrayal from the one person he believed in most? As Ibrahim placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, Ayan's chest ached with the choice. To speak or to stay silent. To trust or to fall. The cold night air hung heavy between them as Ibrahim's wrinkled hand rested gently on Ayan's shoulder. The street was quiet, only the faint hum of distant traffic and the creak of the bookshop's wooden sign breaking the silence. Ayan's throat burned with the weight of unspoken words. Inside his chest, a storm raged. Can I trust him? Or will this be my undoing? I know that face, Ibrahim murmured, his voice calm but piercing. It is the face of a boy carrying a burden too heavy for his years. Sit, Beta. Speak, if your heart allows it. Ayan hesitated. His fingers clenched around the notebook in his pocket, the one holding names, times, secrets that could destroy Rashid Khan. If he gave it to Ibrahim, he would no longer be alone in the fire. But if Ibrahim betrayed him, it would be the end. They sat on a bench outside the shop. The old man's eyes, though clouded with age, carried a sharpness that seemed to cut through lies. Finally, Ayan exhaled. Ustad, I need your advice. Suppose you discover someone powerful is hiding something dangerous. Suppose you can expose him. But if you do, your life, your family's life, all could be destroyed. What would you do? Ibrahim studied him for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice steady. Truth is a sword, Beta. In the wrong hands, it kills. In the right hands, it saves. But no sword is drawn without blood. Ayan's hands trembled. Slowly, he pulled out the notebook and placed it on Ibrahim's lap. This is the truth. Rashid Khan, he is not who he seems. He is smuggling weapons through the docks. I saw it with my own eyes. The old man's face remained calm, but his fingers gripped the notebook tightly. Ya Allah, he whispered under his breath. This is dangerous knowledge, Ayan. More dangerous than you realize. Ayan's voice cracked. I had to tell someone. I couldn't carry it alone. Ibrahim's gaze softened. You were right to come. But listen to me carefully. This path is not straight. Men like Rashid have roots in places you cannot see. If you expose him blindly, you may cut the leaves but not the tree. The words sank deep, but before Ayan could respond, a sound behind them made his blood run cold, the click of a shoe, the shift of shadows. He turned sharply. At the far end of the street, a black car idled, its headlights dim, its engine purring like a predator waiting for its prey. Ibrahim's eyes narrowed. We are not alone. A door creaked open, and two men stepped out tall, dressed in dark suits. Their faces were unreadable, but their presence screamed danger. One of them spoke, his voice calm but laced with authority. Ayan Malik, he said. Hand over the notebook. Ayan's stomach dropped. He looked at Ibrahim, panic in his eyes. How do they know? Ibrahim's jaw tightened, his grip firm on the notebook. Because, Beta, in this city, walls have ears. The men stepped closer. You think you can play with names like Rashid Khan? Give us the notebook, and maybe you'll live to see tomorrow. Ayan's pulse thundered. He wanted to grab the notebook back, to run, to scream, but Ibrahim didn't flinch. He rose slowly, his cane steady, his voice calm. "If you want this," he said, lifting the notebook, "you'll have to take it from an old man's hands." The taller man smirked. "Then so be it." In that moment, Ayan realized the trial of trust had truly begun. If Ibrahim resisted, he would suffer. If Ayan handed over the notebook, he would betray himself. And if he did nothing, both of them could be destroyed. The car engine roared louder. The men advanced. Ayan's chest heaved, his fists clenched, and one burning question filled his mind. Would he betray Ibrahim to save his own life, or would he fight for the trust he had just given away? The night seemed to hold its breath. The two men stepped closer, their polished shoes echoing against the stone street, their eyes fixed on the notebook in Ibrahim's frail hands. Ayan's heart slammed against his ribs, sweat beating at his temples. The words of the letter screamed in his mind, "Trust will be your next trial. Betray him or be betrayed." "Hand it over," the taller man ordered, his voice like ice. "Do not test our patience." Ibrahim stood firm, his cane planted solidly on the ground, the notebook clutched against his chest. His voice, though aged, carried steel. "This boy carries nothing but truth. And truth is not yours to bury." The second man sneered. "Old fool. You think words will stop us?" He took a step forward, reaching out. In a surge of instinct, Ayan lunged between them, spreading his arms wide. "No. You'll have to go through me first." For a moment, silence cracked through the tension. The men exchanged glances, almost amused. "Brave," the taller one said, "but foolish." Before Ayan could react, the man's hand shot out, grabbing him by the collar and shoving him back against the wall. Ayan gasped, his vision blurring. Ibrahim shouted, raising his cane, striking the man's arm with surprising force. The thug snarled, pushing the old man down hard. Ibrahim stumbled but didn't let go of the notebook. Something inside Ayan snapped. He wasn't just protecting paper. He was protecting trust. He was protecting the man who had stood by him when no one else had. With every ounce of strength, Ayan drove his knee into the man's stomach. The thug grunted, loosening his grip, and Ayan twisted free. His hand shot forward, snatching the notebook back from Ibrahim's shaking grasp. "Run, Beta!" Ibrahim cried, his voice hoarse but fierce. "Go!" But Ayan didn't run. His chest heaved as he faced the men, holding the notebook tight to his chest. His voice shook, but his words were steady. "You'll never bury this truth. Not while I breathe." The taller man's face darkened. He reached into his coat and Ayan's blood froze at the glint of metal. A gun. The world slowed. The sound of the street melted into silence. All Ayan could hear was his own heartbeat, and Ibrahim's ragged breathing beside him. The man raised the weapon, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Then you won't be breathing much longer." Just as the shot cracked the air, headlights blazed down the street, cutting through the darkness. A second black car screeched to a halt, its doors flying open. Figures emerged, different men, dressed sharper, their presence colder. One voice sliced through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Enough." The first two men froze, lowering their weapon at once. The new arrivals stepped forward, their leader's face hidden in shadow. Only his words carried power. "He is not yours to touch." "Not yet." The gun was lowered. The tension cracked like glass. Ayan's knees nearly gave way, but he stayed standing, clutching the notebook with trembling hands. The shadowed leader turned toward him. "Ayan Malik," he said softly, almost with amusement. "You have passed further than I expected. Trust, betrayal, courage, you are learning fast. But be warned." He stepped closer, and Ayan caught a glimpse of sharp eyes, familiar and dangerous. "Every test only leads to darker waters. And tonight, you've made enemies who will not forgive." The man gestured, and the two thugs backed away, slipping into the first car. The second car's engine purred, its doors waiting. The leader gave Ayan one last look. "Keep the notebook. But know this, the truth inside it is worth more than your life." With that, they vanished into the night, leaving only the echo of tires against stone.
Ayan sank to his knees, breathless, the notebook pressed against his chest.
Ibrahim groaned, trying to stand, his hand gripping Ayan's arm. Beta, Ibrahim whispered, his eyes filled with both pride and fear.
You have stepped into a fire that will not let you go. Whatever comes next, you must be ready.
Ayan stared at the notebook, the weight of it heavier than ever. He had chosen to trust Ibrahim. And in return, he had not been betrayed. But the trial was far from over. Because somewhere out there, Rashid Khan was still moving his shipments.
And now, Ayan was on his radar. The city felt different the next morning.
Streets that had once been familiar now carried shadows in every corner. Every car that slowed made Ayan's stomach tighten, every stranger's glance felt heavier, sharper. The notebook had become more than paper and ink, it was a curse he couldn't put down. At the cafe, Ayan tried to focus on serving tea, cleaning tables, smiling at customers. But his hands trembled, his mind replaying the events of the night, the gun, the headlights, the man in the shadows who had spared him only to warn him. Ibrahim's words echoed louder than the clatter of cups, "You have stepped into a fire that will not let you go."
By evening, he knew something was wrong.
Rashid Khan had not shown up all day. For a man who loved flaunting his power, his absence was unusual.
Ayan couldn't shake the feeling that the silence itself was a warning.
That night, when Ayan returned home, his mother met him at the door, worry etched into her face.
"Beta, someone came today asking for you. A man. Well dressed.
He said he was a friend of yours from work. I told him you'd be back by evening, but he left before I could ask his name."
A chill spread down Ayan's spine. He forced a smile. Probably someone from the cafe, Ami. "Don't worry."
But inside, panic gnawed at him.
Rashid was moving.
Later, when the house had fallen silent, Ayan sat with Aliyah on the rooftop. She leaned against him, tracing the stars with her finger.
"Bye, you've been so quiet these days. You used to tell me everything. Now it's like you're carrying secrets I'm not allowed to touch." Ayan swallowed hard. "Maybe I am."
"Then promise me," she whispered, looking up at him with pleading eyes. "Whatever it is, don't face it alone." Her words cut deeper than the night air. Because alone was exactly how he felt. The next day, as Ayan walked to the cafe, a car pulled up beside him. A window rolled down, and Rashid Khan leaned out, his smile slick and dangerous.
"Ayan Malik," Rashid said smoothly. "We need to talk." Ayan's pulse spiked. "I'm busy."
"Oh no," Rashid replied, his voice silky with menace.
"You're not. Get in."
Two men in the car's backseat shifted, their eyes hard.
Ayan's breath caught. He knew refusing wasn't an option. Slowly, he slid into the passenger seat.
The car rolled through the city, leaving familiar streets behind.
Finally, it stopped at a secluded house on the edge of town.
Inside, the air smelled of leather and smoke.
Rashid led Ayan into a dim room, shutting the door behind them. The smile dropped from Rashid's face.
His eyes burned.
"Do you think I don't know what you've been doing? Following me? Watching me at the docks? Do you think I'm blind?" Ayan's blood turned cold.
Rashid stepped closer, his voice a hiss.
"Someone has been whispering to you. Someone thinks they can use you against me. But let me make this very clear, if you ever open your mouth, your family will pay the price. Do you understand?"
Ayan clenched his fists, his heart racing. He wanted to shout, to throw the truth in Rashid's face. But then he saw Aliyah's smile in his mind, his mother's tired hands, Hamza's innocent laugh. He bit his tongue. Rashid smirked, leaning closer.
"Good boy. Silence suits you."
He straightened, pulling out a cigarette, lighting it casually.
Smoke curled around his head like a crown. "But I can't have you walking around free with dangerous thoughts.
So you'll prove your loyalty to me."
Ayan's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?"
Rashid blew out smoke, his grin sharp.
There's a man, one of my men, who betrayed me. You'll find him. You'll bring him to me. Do this, and maybe I'll forget your little curiosity at the docks. The words slammed into Ion like a fist. Another test. Another choice between loyalty and betrayal. Only this time, the stakes were his family's lives. Rashid tossed him a small slip of paper with a name on it. You have 3 days. Fail me, and you'll regret it. As Ion left the house, the paper burned in his hand. Another trial had begun. And this one wasn't about facing strangers in the dark, it was about stepping into Rashid's world and playing his game. The night air felt colder than ever. And in the silence of the empty street, a single question haunted Ion's mind. Ion barely slept that night. The name on the slip of paper lay heavy on his bedside table, glowing in his mind like fire. Tahir Qureshi. That was the man Rashid wanted. A traitor, Rashid had called him. But what did that mean in Rashid's world? A man who disobeyed orders? Someone who refused to be his pawn? Or perhaps someone who dared to speak the truth? By morning, Ion's head pounded with restless thoughts. He slipped the paper into his pocket and left the house before his mother awoke. The streets seemed more hostile than usual, every stranger's gaze a possible spy, every shadow a threat. At the cafe, he worked with his hands but not his heart. His mind was elsewhere, on Tahir Qureshi. Who was he? Where would he find him? And if he did, what then? Would he hand him over to Rashid? Or protect him, even if it meant putting his family in danger? That evening, after his shift, Ion went to Ibrahim's bookshop. The old man greeted him with weary eyes, as though he had been expecting him. Beta, you carry another burden tonight. Ion nodded, his throat tight. Rashid gave me a task. He wants me to bring him a man named Tahir Qureshi. Ibrahim's face darkened. Tahir, he lowered his gaze. I know that name. Once, long ago, he was Rashid's right hand. But when Tahir realized what Rashid was truly doing, smuggling, bribing, poisoning the city, he tried to leave. He disappeared into the cracks of this city, hiding from Rashid's wrath. And now Rashid wants him back, Ion finished grimly. Ibrahim placed a hand on his shoulder. Beta, listen to me. If you give Tahir to Rashid, the man will be destroyed. But if you protect him, Rashid will turn his fury on you. This is no simple test. This is the fire of choice. That night, Ion wandered the streets in search of clues. He asked in quiet corners, spoke to dock workers, slipped coins to strangers with wary eyes. Slowly, whispers pieced together a trail. Tahir was said to live in the old quarter, in a decaying building near the river. When Ion finally reached it, the building loomed like a skeleton against the night sky. He climbed the creaking stairs, his heart pounding, and knocked on a door marked with peeling paint. After a long silence, it opened a crack. A man's sharp eyes peered through, cautious, suspicious. Who are you? Tahir Qureshi? Ion whispered. The door slammed shut instantly. But Ion pressed his palms against it. Please. I'm not here to hurt you. I need to talk. There was silence, then the scrape of locks turning. Slowly, the door opened. A man in his late 30s stood there, his face tired, his clothes simple. His eyes, though, burned with a quiet fire. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice edged with fear and defiance. Ion swallowed hard. Rashid Khan sent me. Tahir's jaw tightened, his fists clenching. But before he could react, Ion raised his hands. Not to betray you. To understand you. Something flickered in Tahir's eyes, confusion, then cautious curiosity. He stepped back, letting Ion in. The room was bare, little more than a mattress on the floor, a table with old papers, and a dim lamp. Tahir sat, his gaze sharp. If Rashid sent you, then you are either his dog or his enemy. Which one are you? I don't know, Ion admitted, his voice shaking. All I know is he wants you. He said you betrayed him. Tahir laughed bitterly. Betrayed? No. I refused.
I refused to smuggle guns that would arm criminals.
I refused to be his pawn. Rashid calls that betrayal because he cannot imagine loyalty to anything but himself.
The words struck Ayan's heart like truth itself. Here was a man not running from guilt, but from conscience.
Rashid hadn't been asking for justice. He had been demanding blood. Ayan's chest tightened. If I don't bring you to him, he'll come after me. My family. He threatened them. Tahir's expression softened slightly. Then you are caught in his chains too. You want freedom, boy? Then listen. Rashid's empire is built on fear. He believes everyone has a price, everyone will betray to save themselves.
But if someone dares to stand, someone who will not break, that is what he fears most.
Ayan's heart pounded.
He looked at Tahir, a man who had already risked everything to defy Rashid.
Could this be the ally he needed? Or was he being drawn into a trap of trust again?
Before he could decide, a sharp knock rattled the door.
Both men froze. Tahir's eyes went wide.
He's found me, he whispered. The knocking grew louder, harsher.
A voice thundered from the hall, "Open up, Tahir. Rashid wants his traitor." Ayan's blood ran cold. They had been followed. The walls closed in. The trial had turned to fire. And in that moment, Ayan knew he had to decide, would he hand Tahir over to save himself, or fight to protect the man Rashid feared?
The pounding on the door shook the weak frame of the apartment, dust raining down from the cracked ceiling. Ayan's heart hammered in his chest, each thud of his pulse louder than the fists outside. Tahir's eyes burned into his, waiting, measuring, seeing whether this boy would choose survival or courage. "Open the door, Tahir," the voice outside roared, followed by the metallic clang of boots kicking against the wood.
"You can't hide forever. Rashid wants you alive, but he didn't say how alive."
Tahir leaned close, whispering sharply.
"You need to go. Slip out the window while you still can.
If they find you here, they'll drag you to Rashid as well."
But Ayan shook his head.
His breath came hard, torn between terror and defiance.
"If I run, they'll know. They'll smell my fear. And Rashid will make me the example. He'll crush my family."
Tahir's gaze softened for a moment, pity flashing through his eyes.
"Then choose, Ayan. Do you live as his slave or stand against him?" The banging grew violent. The doorframe cracked. Ayan spun toward the small window.
Beyond it, the alley yawned, dark and slick with rain, a drop of 2 stories. Escape was possible, but it would mean leaving Tahir to be torn apart.
Ayan clenched his fists.
He remembered Rashid's smirk, his poisoned words about loyalty, his threats against his mother. And he remembered Ibrahim's weary eyes, his warning that trials were fires that revealed the truth.
Ayan turned to Tahir.
His voice shook, but it was steady enough to be heard over the thunderous pounding. "If I leave now, I'll never forgive myself. If I fight, maybe I'll die, but at least I won't die on my knees." For the first time, Tahir's hardened expression cracked into a faint, grim smile.
"Then we fight."
The door burst open with a final splintering crash. Rashid's men stormed in, 3 of them, heavy boots, leather jackets, knives gleaming under the flickering light. Their leader, a thick-necked man with a scar across his cheek, sneered at Tahir.
"The traitor himself. And who's this?" Rashid didn't say anything about a boy.
Ayan's voice trembled, but he forced steel into it.
"I'm no boy. And I won't let you take him."
The men laughed, harsh and cruel.
"Won't let us?" "You hear that?" one sneered. "The boy thinks he's a hero." But Tahir didn't laugh.
His hands closed around a rusted iron rod he'd kept near the table.
He handed Ayan a heavy wrench from the floor. "Hold it tight. Swing hard. They don't expect you to resist."
The scarred man lunged forward, and the fight erupted.
The room exploded in chaos, grunts, crashes, the clang of metal against flesh.
Ayan's arms shook as he swung the wrench, catching one thug in the knee. The man howled, collapsing to the ground.
Tahir moved with the desperation of a man who had fought too many battles, striking fast, fierce, aiming for survival rather than victory. But there were too many. One grabbed Ayan by the collar, slamming him against the wall. His head spun with pain, stars bursting in his vision. The man raised a knife, its blade catching the dim light. Ayan's breath caught. His life hung by a thread. Then, from deep inside, something broke loose, fear turned to fire. He drove the wrench upward with all his strength, smashing it into the man's wrist. The knife clattered to the floor. Ayan shoved him back with a wild cry. Tahir shouted, "This way." He kicked the lamp, sending it crashing. Darkness and smoke filled the room, confusing their attackers. Together, he and Ayan bolted through the window, crashing down into the wet alley below. The fall knocked the wind out of Ayan, but adrenaline dragged him to his feet. They ran, footsteps splashing through puddles, shouts echoing behind them as Rashid's men scrambled to follow. The city blurred past narrow lanes, broken walls, flickering neon signs until finally they ducked into a hidden passage between two warehouses. Breathing ragged, Ayan slumped against the wall. His chest burned. His hands shook, streaked with dirt and blood. Tahir crouched beside him, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "You chose," Tahir said softly. "And now you can never go back." Ayan looked at him, fear still twisting in his gut but mixed with something else, a fierce, unfamiliar strength. "Rashid will never stop. He'll come for me. For my family." Tahir nodded grimly. "Then we must strike first. Not hide. Not run. If you want freedom, if you want to protect them, you have to be willing to bring Rashid down." The words hung in the cold night like a blade. Bring Rashid down? Ayan had never even imagined it. Rashid was untouchable, feared by everyone, his grip choking the city. But now, for the first time, Ayan saw a path. Dangerous, impossible, but real. The choice was no longer survival or surrender. It was rebellion. And as footsteps echoed faintly in the distance, Ayan realized there was no turning back. The night air was thick with dampness as Ayan and Tahir crouched in the narrow passage between the warehouses, their breaths steaming in the cold. The distant shouts of Rashid's men had faded, but the danger lingered like smoke. Ayan pressed his back against the wall, trembling not just from fear, but from the decision he had made. He had chosen to resist. And there was no undoing it. Tahir's gaze stayed on him, sharp yet approving. "You stood tonight," he said, his voice low but steady. "That means you're ready for more. Rashid will hunt us like dogs now. The only way forward is to strike before he does." Ayan's chest tightened. "Strike? How? He has men everywhere. Money, weapons. We don't even have a roof over our heads." Tahir leaned closer, his eyes burning with quiet conviction. He built his empire on fear. That is his greatest weapon and his greatest weakness. If we can gather those he's crushed, those who have nothing left to lose, we can turn his own city against him. The words felt impossible, yet something in them stirred Ayan's blood. Rashid was not a god. He was a man. And men could fall. The next days blurred into shadows and whispers. Tahir led Ayan through hidden places, basements beneath crumbling buildings, deserted corners of the marketplace, quiet rooms where forgotten people gathered. Each time, Tahir spoke with a voice of fire, reminding the broken and the weary that Rashid's reign was not eternal. They met Farzana, a widow whose husband had been beaten to death by Rashid's thugs for refusing to pay protection money. Her eyes glistened with tears when she spoke, but her voice carried steel. "I have nothing left to lose. If it means seeing him fall, I will fight." Then there was Hassan, a dock worker with shoulders like stone, who had once hauled Rashid's smuggled crates until his brother disappeared for asking questions. He clasped Ayan's hand, his grip strong. "I've waited years for someone to rise against him. If you're brave enough, I'm with you." Slowly, a small circle formed. Not soldiers, not heroes, but ordinary people who had been broken by Rashid's cruelty. And with each meeting, Ayan's fear bent into determination. But every step forward carried risk.
One evening, as they left the bookshop after speaking to Ibrahim, Ayan caught sight of a shadow moving where no shadow should be.
His stomach dropped. Someone was watching them.
"Don't look back," Tahir whispered sharply, noticing too.
"Keep walking."
They did, their pace steady, but the shadow trailed them, slipping through alleys, never too far behind.
Ayan's heart pounded as sweat beaded on his brow.
Finally, Tahir pulled him into a hidden stairwell, pressing him against the wall. A man passed by, his eyes searching, his hand resting on the hilt of a knife. One of Rashid's spies. They held their breath until the man moved on.
Ayan exhaled shakily. He knows. Rashid knows. Tahir's jaw tightened. Then our time is shorter than I thought. We must act soon.
That night, in a dimly lit room above an abandoned bakery, the circle gathered. The air was heavy with fear, yet charged with resolve.
Tahir laid out the plan.
"We strike where Rashid believes himself strongest, his warehouse on the river. It is the heart of his power, the place where his shipments come and go. If we burn it, if we take it from him, the city will see that he can bleed."
Gasps filled the room. Farzana covered her mouth. Hassan's eyes widened. Even Ayan's stomach twisted. Attack Rashid's warehouse? It felt like suicide.
But Tahir's voice grew stronger, carrying over their fear.
"Rashid wants us to cower in silence. But if the city sees resistance, if they see him wounded, it will spark something he cannot contain.
Fear will change sides."
All eyes turned to Ayan.
He felt the weight of their gazes, of the choice that had somehow fallen on his shoulders. He swallowed hard, then nodded.
"We do it. No more hiding."
The room hummed with nervous agreement. Plans began to form: who would sneak into the warehouse, who would stand watch, who would carry fire. For the first time, they were not just victims. They were conspirators. Later that night, Ayan stood alone on a rooftop, the city spread before him in a patchwork of lights and shadows. His heart thudded with terror and hope. If they failed, Rashid would kill them all. If they succeeded, it would ignite a fire across the city. Behind him, Tahir's voice broke the silence.
"Do you regret it?" Ayan shook his head slowly. "No. For the first time, I feel alive." Tahir's hand rested on his shoulder.
"Then remember this, Ayan, freedom always begins with someone willing to risk everything.
Tonight, you are that someone." But even as those words stirred courage in his chest, Ayan knew Rashid's spies lurked in the dark, listening, waiting.
And when Rashid discovered their plan, the storm he unleashed would be unlike anything they had faced before.
The night of the strike came like a drumbeat in Ayan's chest.
The river lay still under a moonless sky, its surface black and silent, broken only by the faint glow of the warehouse lamps on the shore. Rashid's fortress of power stood their iron gates, armed guards pacing the perimeter, crates stacked high like monuments to his greed. Ayan crouched behind a broken wall with Tahir, Farzana, Hassan, and the others. Their faces were pale in the dim light, but their eyes glowed with the fire of resolve. Every one of them knew what was at stake. Failure meant death. Success meant defiance and the beginning of something larger. Tahir whispered, his voice steady. "We move in two groups. Hassan, you and the dock workers cut the power to the lights. Farzana, you'll signal with the lantern once it's done.
Ayan, you and I will carry the fire inside.
Remember, the crates aren't just goods. They're poison, weapons, bribes. Burn them, and Rashid will bleed."
Ayan nodded, his throat dry.
His hands trembled as he gripped the bottle of kerosene wrapped in cloth. He thought of his mother, asleep at home, unaware of the danger her son had chosen. He thought of Rashid's threats, his smirk, his lies. And he thought of the faces of those who had suffered in silence. The signal came, a faint flicker of lantern light in the distance. Hassan had done his part. The lamps around the warehouse blinked and went dark, plunging the yard into shadow. Now, Tahir hissed. They slipped through a gap in the fence, moving like shadows. The guards, confused by the sudden blackout, muttered to each other, fumbling with flashlights. Ayan's pulse roared in his ears as he and Tahir crept toward the nearest crate, dousing it in kerosene. The smell was sharp, overwhelming. His hands shook as he struck the match. For a moment, the tiny flame trembled on the matchstick, fragile against the dark. Then he touched it to the crate. Fire leapt upward, hungry, fierce, spreading like vengeance. Shouts erupted. Guards screamed, running toward the blaze. Another crate caught, then another, flames devouring the warehouse like a beast awakened. Hassan and his men charged forward, swinging pipes and sticks, catching the guards off balance. Farzana hurled stones from the shadows, her voice carrying a cry of fury. Chaos exploded. Fire painted the night in orange and red, smoke billowing high into the sky. The river reflected the flames like molten glass. Ayan and Tahir fought side by side, dodging blows, striking back with desperate strength. For every guard that fell, another appeared. Yet the fire spread faster than Rashid's men could contain it, swallowing years of his empire in minutes. And then a voice thundered from the gates. Rashid Khan himself. He strode into the yard, flanked by his fiercest enforcers. His face twisted with rage, his eyes glowing with hatred. You dare, he bellowed, his voice cutting through the chaos. You think you can burn me? I made this city. Without me, you are nothing. A hush fell, even amid the flames. Rashid's presence was a storm, a reminder of the power he wielded. For a moment, Ayan's courage faltered. His knees nearly buckled. But then he saw the others, Farzana clutching a stone with trembling hands, Hassan bleeding but still standing tall, Tahir gripping the iron rod with fire in his eyes. They were all looking at Rashid, and for the first time, there was no fear, only fury. Ayan stepped forward, his voice breaking but clear. You don't own us anymore, Rashid. Tonight, the city sees you burn. Rashid's face darkened. With a roar, he charged. His enforcers followed, blades flashing. The final clash erupted, steel against steel, flesh against fire. Ayan fought like a cornered lion, every blow fueled by years of swallowed anger. Tahir met Rashid head-on, their weapons colliding, sparks flying in the inferno. The fire raged higher, swallowing the warehouse whole. Beams cracked, walls crumbled, the air thick with smoke. Rashid's empire was collapsing around him. At last, Tahir's iron rod struck true, knocking Rashid to his knees. The firelight painted his furious face as he glared at Ayan, gasping. You'll never win. Another will take my place. Fear always returns. Ayan stepped forward, breathing hard, his body shaking with exhaustion and firelight. He met Rashid's gaze and spoke words that burned with conviction. Not if we choose courage. Not if we stand together. Behind him, the circle of once broken people stood tall, their silhouettes blazing against the inferno. For the first time, they were not victims. They were free. With a final roar, the warehouse collapsed, burying Rashid's empire in flame. The night sky glowed red as the city watched from afar, whispers spreading like sparks in the wind. Rashid Khan, the untouchable, had fallen. And in that fire, Ayan felt something ignite inside him, not just rebellion, but hope. He was no longer just a waiter, no longer just a boy. He was part of something greater, something that could not be silenced. As the flames devoured the last of Rashid's power, Ayan turned to the others. This is just the beginning. Tomorrow, we rebuild, not with fear, but with freedom. The crowd around him nodded, some weeping, some laughing through their tears. In their eyes, Ayan saw the truth. Rashid was right about one thing. Fear always returns. But so does courage. And courage, once lit, spreads faster than fire.